Hello everybody and welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. I'm your host Adam Miller, and before I begin I just need to say that we've had a few technical issues with this episode. That's why it's so late. Unfortunately these issues still haven't been resolved, and as such I'm going to have to record my bit separately to everyone else. There may be a slight disconnect, but hopefully with Matt's editing skills it won't be too bad. So without further ado, let's kick things off. As I say, my name's Adam, and I'm joined by my hosts Matthew, Stephen, and Ryan. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
So without further ado, let's kick things off. This month we're looking at puzzle games. We have a selection of 4 classic puzzle titles that we're going to look at and see what we think of it. Let's get things started with Matt's pick. We'll have a musical interlude and we'll get cracking.
Okay, my pick this month is Columns for the Mega Drive. It's been released on quite a few systems. It came out on the Mega Drive first, I believe. There's also an arcade version, a Game Gear version, and a Saturn version, which I believe was the arcade version that was ported to the Saturn. Weirdly, it didn't get a Master System release, which is unusual for games that came out on the Game Gear as well. But they never released it on the Master System. It is, I'm sure most people know what it is, but it's a puzzle game where you have to match jewels, and when you've matched a certain number, it will clear that colour of jewel. And it's basically like Tetris without the different shaped blocks, and a little bit more complicated in that you've got 3 different colours of jewels that you need to match up. I had this on the Mega Drive when I was growing up, and it wasn't my favourite puzzle game, but it was one of the ones that I gave a lot of play to because I didn't have an NES at the time. There are better puzzle games on the NES, but this is pretty much the only one I had. So if I wanted to play a puzzle game, then Columns was pretty much my only choice, really. So what do you guys think of it?
I thought it was hard as hell, first of all. It was not easy, but I rather enjoyed it. My score was pretty pitiful we're not even going to talk about that one. My score was bad. But when it comes to what I will call a Tetris-like, I will say that it was different enough. It almost seemed like it was the foundation for a lot of further match 3s and whatnot.
Yeah.
That it was, it's definitely when I start building up my Sega collection, I'm going to be adding this to my Genesis catalog because it is rather good, and the music's nice too.
I think the music is quite relaxing for the game. I don't think it's particularly exciting. For me, there are games with better music out there. I prefer to just kind of mute the music and put my own music on because,
right.
Like I say, it is relaxing, but it's just not exciting enough for me, really, when I'm playing the game, and it does bore me after a few minutes.
Doesn't really get you pumped like some of the other games we're going to talk about.
No.
So I'm going to contend with 2 of your points in that earlier spiel. I had never heard of this game in the slightest, which I'm actually now surprised seeing the number of things it's been released on. I had never seen anything like this before. So that was kind of cool to discover a new thing. But also, from what I'm looking at, it was released on the Master System.
Was it?
Yeah, it says, because it was made by Sega, versions were made available on the Master System, Mega Drive, Mega CD, Game Gear, Saturn, and Dreamcast.
I could have sworn that I checked that and it didn't have one. But
I know.
I might have to see about picking that up then.
Well then, looks like someone needs to go back to school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I thought the game was actually pretty good. Like Ryan, I didn't do great at it, but I did, I enjoyed discovering a new type of puzzle game because I'd never seen anything like this.
I personally quite like the way that it ramps up the challenge with speed the further you go, and it stops the gameplay from getting stale Although it reaches kind of like a point where you just have to rely on luck, pretty much, because you can't position stuff in time. You just can't. It is so fast, so hectic, that you've just got to hope and pray. And I got a really high score on the game, and the last 5 minutes of my gameplay on that was pure luck. I almost got right to the top of the screen, because once the gems fill up to the top of the screen, then that's game over. I almost got to that point about 2 or 3 times, and just through pure luck, I managed to get something which cleared a hell of a lot at once, and I was able to carry on. But it wasn't down to skill at that point at all.
Right, I've definitely experienced that in other puzzle games.
Tetris,
another one we're going to talk about later.
You set yourself up for so many Tetrises, and now you're panicking because you're not getting a line. And then suddenly you get like all 3 lines right in a row, and you can clear the whole screen.
Yeah. Which feels amazing, by the way.
Right, because you're like, yeah! No, I rather enjoyed columns. Now, I was playing on an emulator, and my emulator can get a little bit choppy at times. I'm not saying I didn't score well because the emulator, it's the game's fault, not mine. But I think once I get my hands on a Genesis, hopefully relatively soon, I'm going to acquire this. I'm going to see if that runs a little bit smoother, on, its native hardware.
The Genesis version does run really smooth. I mean, I played it on my Retron 5 from cartridge, and it was I didn't have any kind of slowdown whatsoever.
I'm going to have to take a look at this, because according to what I'm seeing here is it was on the Sega Genesis collection for the PS2, and then was on the same collection on the PSP. I have that collection on the PSP. I'm going to have to check that out, see if it's there.
It's on the PlayStation 3 one as well, and the PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One as well.
Yeah, the Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for PS3 and 360.
Now that I'm thinking about it, Games with Gold has a whole bunch of Sega collections. I bet this was one of them.
Yeah, probably.
I probably could have played it there instead of on my computer.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, I may be, but I believe that the very latest releases of those collections actually include online play as well.
Nice.
Which is
that'd be nice.
Which is something interesting. So I might have to pick one of those collections up to try online play for not just for columns, for quite a few games. So,
well, you were bragging about your high score. How big was your high score, Matt? So we can all bow in respect.
I'm going to have to go back and see if I can find the photo I took of it. Let's have a look.
I don't even remember if I attempted the high score on this one. I've already deleted all of my pictures.
Good for you. I think I still have them all. Yours was like the 800,000. I'm not even sure if I broke 5 digits.
I don't know if I even submitted one for columns.
But
I found it.
Oh no, I found it. Yeah.
Oh, you did? I found it to be 173,000.
Yep. 873,515. Which,
Very
like
nice.
I said, was mostly luck by the end of that.
I might have broken like 12,000. I didn't submit the score because I knew I wasn't going to win that one. But that's not to say I wasn't enjoying it. So
it is quite a relaxing experience, at least for the first few levels when it's not too fast. And it's a nice way to just spend some time if you don't want to go to one of your shooty bang bang games. It's just a nice, relaxing, bliss out kind of game. The music, whilst not exciting, does kind of like help with that kind of vibe as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I said, it does get really intense and ramps your anxiety up really good near the end. But it doesn't start out the gate like that. It is a much more chill, it comes off as being a much more chill puzzle game. I would rate this game a 6 out of 10 Tetrises.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something I could see myself playing again, just to try it out.
And with it being re-released so many times, you can get it for pretty much everything. I believe it's on Steam for like a couple £2 if you want to get the version in the Sega Mega Drive collection there.
Yeah, so, it's on iOS, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance,
So yeah, you've got a hell of a lot of choice there.
Yeah.
even on cartridge, it's one of the cheaper Mega Drive games because it was so popular. There's so many copies out there.
I was rather surprised and satisfied with puzzles, and that's really the best rating I can give a game, is I was satisfied with it. I was not disappointed in the slightest.
Yeah.
I think that probably wraps us up for columns, unless you have anything else to add.
No, not for this one.
I can hear the sound of a TARDIS, so we'll let Past Adam chip in with his take on the game, and after that we'll move on to the next pick.
So for me, Columns is a game that I got quite recently for my Sega Saturn in the Columns arcade collection, and I've been replaying it. However, I did own the game as a child on both the Mega Drive and the Game Gear, so I've got plenty of experience with it. I mean, that's not to say I'm very good at the game, to be honest. I still kind of suck. I used to try and just do whatever I could, but now I try and set up combinations, but as you can see from my high score, which wasn't particularly much, it's not really anything to write home about. And yeah, I have a particular fondness with this game. It's something that, a lot of people didn't play because they played Tetris instead. But I thought this was better than Tetris. In fact, I think the music, which obviously for a Tetris is iconic, the music in Columns is just that bit better. I find that the theme tune of Columns is just perfect for puzzling, and yeah, it's really good. And the game itself is a lot of fun. They added a 2-player mode to the Mega Drive version, I think. The arcade version I have is only single player, but I seem to remember that there was a 2-player mode. I know the later Columns games had it, and, that definitely added to the experience. But yeah, Columns is a damn good time. Okay, so let's move on then. We'll take a break, and then we'll move on to my pick. So my pick this month is Arkanoid. Arkanoid was released by Taito in 1986 in the arcades, and it's pretty much been released on more or less everything. The version that I'm going to be looking at is the Spectrum version, but I think everyone else played different versions. You can get versions on the NES, I believe, the Thomson, the Amstrad, the Apple, the Atari. Pretty much all your classic, early consoles. And for a good reason. It's something that people know the format because it's something that, many games have copied since. I can't remember the name of the genre or the name of the type of clone things that it has. I think it's Breakout or something. But anyway, these games have been replicated multiple times. But what you do is, in the game you control like a little paddle, and you have to bounce the ball, kind of like a one-sided tennis thing, and destroy bricks. Some of the big bricks go in one hit, some, take multiple hits. You destroy all the bricks, you go to the next level. In Arkanoid, you also get a number of power-ups as well, which, honestly, I kind of think is a really neat thing. You've got one where I think it's the letter B, and that makes you automatically go to the next level. There's one with a P, which gives you extra lives. There's one which, I think it's L, where you fire a gun, which is pretty damn awesome. There's one that makes you bigger, one that, makes the ball split into 3, and there's another one which makes your ball a bit sticky, so it sticks to the pad, and then you can, move it about before you fire it off again. It's, it's really neat. It starts out on the Spectrum version with a little bit of cool music, which you heard in the intro. And then after that, it's silent, apart from the tinkering of the ball against the paddle. But it never really seems like dull because of it. It has musical interludes between the levels, and honestly, I kind of think that's enough. The game has its issues, though. I mean, one thing I'm sure the other guys will agree with when they start talking about is that the hit detection's a bit wonky. The hit detection's not the best. You kind of have to hit, the ball in the centre of the paddle. if it goes to one side, it just seems to go through the paddle, which can be a bit annoying. But that being said, it's something you can get a feel for as well, so it's not a deal breaker in my opinion, but it does make the game unnecessarily hard. There are also like these gold blocks as well, which you can't destroy. They're kind of neat and lead to some interesting level mechanics. I think it's round 3 where, it's got all these gold blocks and you need to bounce it through like a little maze. If you get it just right, it's really, really satisfying because the ball just bounces around. You get tons of points from the enemies. But, if you don't get it just right, it can be, a massive pain in the ass. The game also has, like, enemies as well. And the enemies seem to be, like, different shapes and stuff. Like, the ones in round 1, which also appear in some of the later rounds, look a bit like upside-down ice creams, which are kind of neat. And others look a bit like Space Invaders, some are like triangles and shit like that. It's just something that's a bit kind of weird. Some of the level designs are quite interesting as well. Round 3 was, a particular favourite of mine. There was round 5, which was like a big Space Invader head. But then there's some that are quite annoying. Like, there's one which, I think it's like round 7 or something, and you've got like these blocks, and they're like really long blocks that go right near the floor. And it's really hard to bounce your ball off it because you've not really got much time to react. But yeah, I find that the actual puzzle game itself is quite addictive, and apart from a few technical issues, it's a good game. So I'll pass on to you guys, and you can say your opinion.
I rather enjoyed Arkanoid, but I've always been a big fan of Breakout, which, if I'm correct, and I might not be, I think I found out that... nope, Arkanoid did come after, but it was better than the original Breakout from Atari.
Yes.
Because obviously it had all the fun power-ups. It looked nicer. Now, I know that listed we were going to play the Spectrum version, but I have trouble, for some reason, emulating the Spectrum. So I played the NES version.
Yeah, I played the NES too.
I played 3 different versions. I played the Spectrum, C64, and NES versions.
Oh, very nice.
Well, then we have a nice comparison. Well, what did you think of the different versions? Because I know you have like different graphical qualities, and I imagine little variances.
Well, I started off with the Spectrum version, and I was immediately kind of disappointed. Even though it looks nice, there's a problem with hit detection, which Adam mentioned in his segment. You should be able to hit the ball anywhere on the paddle. And unfortunately, on the Spectrum version, if you hit the ball at the edge of the paddle, it will usually just go straight through it. And kind of one of the joys of Arkanoid and Breakout games is that you can have the ball hit the paddle at different angles and in different places, and it will send it in different directions.
Right.
So you try and get an edge shot on the ball with the Spectrum version, and it just goes straight through and you lose the ball. I then played the C64 version. As is often the case with C64 games, there is a lot more colour, although the graphics don't tend to be as sharp. And the C64 version was slightly better in its hit detection, but not by much. Mm-hmm. You could sometimes get near to the end of the paddle with the ball, but most of the time, again, if you got right to the edge, it would just go straight through. So I wasn't able to get much of a high score on that either. But then I went to the NES version, and the hit detection on the NES version is pretty much perfect. You can hit it right bang on the edge, and it will properly bounce off it. So I think in terms of playability, the NES version is definitely the one to go for. It's graphically better, and you don't get the frustrating pass-throughs of the ball like you do on the other versions.
Yeah, I mean that's what I found with the NES version was that it played very well. My history with this kind of game is a little weird. I first played a game called Blast Through from E-Games that is basically exactly the same, down to some of the power-ups being the same and some of the level layouts even being the same. It's just, obviously it came out in 96, 97, so it had much better graphics. And really playing Arkanoid just made me want to play Blast Through again.
Yeah, see, I hadn't heard of Arkanoid until, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, and I had never played it until now. I knew it was a game. I understood kind of what it was. I had grown up playing, the original Breakout and Breakout clones, but this was the first time I played, like, the full upgrades and all that, what makes Arkanoid Arkanoid. And I love it because I love Breakout, and this is even better. I might have already said that. I did find out that the NES version of Arkanoid, actually, you could get a special Arkanoid paddle that would be similar to, like, the Pong and Breakout paddles for NES, or not NES, but for, like, the 2600 or what you would find in the arcade.
Oh, you mean the actual peripheral?
Yeah, they actually made a special controller to go with Arkanoid. I just looked up the price, and it looks like you can get Arkanoid, which is not a very expensive game, but with the paddle is going to run you about $55 or more if you really want the real experience.
And do you know how the playability is with other games using that paddle?
I am not entirely sure. I have read up on the paddle that it worked exceptionally well, but I don't know if it worked with any other games.
I bet you there's a speedrunner out there who's done Super Mario with a paddle. There's bound to be.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, because it does look like you get an A and B button. So yeah, you get a fire button and some other button that functions as B. And I'm just going to assume that the paddle works as like a special left and right system. Man, I almost want to order up one of these paddles just to see what games I can play with it. I bet somebody makes an aftermarket one.
I don't know, because it sounds like it would be very niche.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody's doing it. You can buy, if you want to talk about niche, someone makes a NES Advantage stick for the NES Minis called the Edge.
Oh, actually, I'd really kind of like to get one of them.
Actually, I just got a lot of games, and it came with the NES Advantage, and it's kind of fantastic for like Pac-Man and Millipede and stuff like that. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm seeing the paddle controller now.
Yeah, it's kind of funky looking.
Yeah. Yeah, you could totally play Mario on that.
Probably. Well, because it actually uses like the capacitive, like the wheel on it. It's not just left and right where you just twist it left and right and you get one input or the other. It's actually like on a scale. Yeah. So it's got to be able to work somehow, I assume. I'll probably be the guinea pig on this one, so if I ever grab one, I'll follow up on it at a later date.
Sounds good.
No, but yeah, Arkanoid, I loved it. Really colorful. I mean, for an NES game, like, obviously it's just squares and more squares, and then some, like, triangles, but it was a really bright... I would like to comment on how fast the ball goes when you start hitting enemies that are dropping out of the ceiling.
Oh, God, yeah, it just gets impossible for me, pretty much.
Like, that, it goes from regular speed up to just bonkers fast.
Yeah.
And Adam mentioned that they look like ice cream cones. I'm not sure what they meant to be.
Well, hopefully ice cream cones, because they're spot on.
This picture has a sphere and some kind of pyramid, so I'm not sure.
Now, fun thing, the description of Arkanoid, it's not just like paddle breaker. Actually, the Arkanoid is... It's not the name of the paddle, but
it's the
paddle
mothership.
Yeah, the paddle is actually a spaceship. Go figure. And you're actually defeating an alien menace and also apparently space walls, so...
Yeah.
And space ice cream.
And space ice cream, exactly.
One of the main draws of Arkanoid, I think, is even though it's a Breakout clone, it adds a hell of a lot of new stuff to that formula that keeps it fresh and engaging with all of the different power-ups.
It's all those power-ups, the wide paddle, multi-ball, which I think the wide paddle was probably my favorite just because it seemed like the most useful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I found the slow one to be the most useful for me because I couldn't react in time.
Yeah.
See, and this one's interesting because it kind of like those power-ups kind of sparked kind of a revitalization of Breakout because it had been dying out because it got boring.
Mm-hmm.
And like the game that I played, you could actually stack power-ups. So you could end up with a paddle that was half the length of the screen. Whereas with this one, if you got any power-up, it would cancel out whatever you had previously.
I actually remember playing a Arkanoid clone back on Windows 95 or 8. And it was it was part of the games package, and I think it was called Top 20 Solid Gold Games. Maybe someone listening or one of you guys will remember that, but it had a whole bunch of like classic arcade clones, like Centipede, Missile Command, Breakout, Pong.
Right.
All these classic games, but one of them was it was like Breakout, or I can't remember what they called it originally, or what they called the clone game, because they obviously weren't licensed versions, but they had like Walls or some terrible name, and that was just straight up Breakout. And then they had an Arkanoid-esque one. They didn't have as many power-ups. It had like the multi-pawl, the sticky paddle, and then the wide paddle, but you could stack those. So you could end up with a really wide paddle that was sticky, and you could grab like 5 balls and then launch them all at once.
Yeah.
Was it DX Ball? There is an Arkanoid clone called DX Ball, which came out on the Windows systems.
No, I don't. This was like, these were all like sub clones because none of them were licensed titles. Like one of them was, there was a name for the game, but it was essentially Asteroids, but it was Asteroid Versus. Except the ships was clearly the USS Enterprise and a Klingon bird of prey.
Gotcha.
So like they were, and that was literally called like Space War. Yeah, these were all like knockoffs of knockoffs.
But I do definitely remember playing a version on a Windows system, maybe around Windows 3.1 to Windows 95, somewhere around that era.
Yeah, I think there were plenty around that time. Let's see. I mean, there were the actual Arkanoid sequels.
And the 17 ports of Arkanoid to every possible computer.
Yeah. And then, a whole bunch of clones came after.
I mean, when a game's good, they set the standard. I mean, look what happened. We got, like, Bejeweled, and then there was, like, 40 billion Bejeweled clones. So when you strike gold, everybody's going to follow suit.
And subsequently fail to do well.
Yeah, well, that's another problem, but...
Bejeweled is fantastic, though. I love Bejeweled. I think it's a little bit out of our catchment area for the retro stuff, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've definitely sunk a couple hours into Bejeweled and enjoyed my time there. And like I said, it's obviously Bejeweled does like the spinny stuff, but I feel like Columns might have been a little bit of inspiration for Jewel, or Bejeweled.
Oh, definitely.
So, props where props are due. Yeah, no, I think when it comes to high scores, I think I nailed out like maybe 30,000 on Arkanoid. I kept getting screwed over by all the frickin' enemies that pop up. I'd break through and then bounce around, smash a couple enemies, and my ball would just rocket off into the Muranosphere.
Yeah, because of that, I never actually made it to level 3.
I think I died on level 3.
Yeah, I think level 3 is the furthest I made it, too.
Damn it, Adam! But, no, Arkanoid's great, and I have it installed on my Mini, and I'm going to play some more of that once I get my wireless controllers in. So, free advertising. 8-Bit does releasing an NES set of controllers for the Minis. They have, like, a built-in turbo button.
Aha.
But they also come with you buy the controller, and it comes with the little receiver, plugs right in. So I have a set of those for my SNES Mini, and now I'm going to have a set for my NES Mini. I can play those from my living room and not deal with tiny, short controllers.
Yeah, because it's like a foot long. It's
weird.
I mean, I've got to scooch so far up to my TV to actually be able to play that.
So these will, I will be sinking a lot more time into Arkanoid as a result, since I don't have a physical copy of it, unfortunately.
Right.
I might get my hands on one of those too.
Do those pads also have a button to allow you to reset the console?
They have a home button on them. On the SNES Mini controllers, or the set for that are wired up for the SNES Mini, you press down and select for like a second and a half, and it brings you back to the home screen. And then the new NES 30s or whatever they're called, those actually have a dedicated home button to bring you back to the home screen.
I may have to invest in one of those.
I think they're like 23 a pop. They're not out yet. They're on pre-order right now for like mid-August. I saw those and instantly dropped money because, I mean, their stuff is good and I love me some NES, so...
Right.
There you go, 8-Bit Dose. Some more free advertisement if you're listening. If you want to send me a check in the mail.
Yeah, see, I'm probably... Most of my use of them is going to be for Switch controllers.
Oh, they're really good Switch controllers, too.
Yeah, because, I mean, I've still got my original NES. I've been building my library of cartridge games, so I'm not super worried about the minis. But their controllers that are compatible with the Switch are just fantastic. So
well, and they also have adapters that plug into like your Super Nintendo and NES as well, so you can use the wireless controllers with the Bluetooth. So
just do that.
Yeah, I thought about that too. But enough about peripherals.
Somebody who's not paying us.
Yeah, enough about someone who's not paying us here. As much as I recommend them, they're not paying us. We're paying us, and we don't pay very much. So. Let's get back on track here.
I mean, I don't know that there's really that much to say. I mean, like I said, my main takeaway from Arkanoid is, man, I really want to play Blast Through again. So I went and found a way to play it.
What did Blast Through, release on?
It was on PC around it was like 96, 97 or so. It was part of the eGames Collector's Edition. I can direct you guys to the files.
Okay.
Because it is a blast. Like, it's got all these power-ups, it's got new power-ups, and it's got negative power-ups. Like, one of them is a sword that will kill you.
Oh, that sounds counterintuitive.
Well, it adds another level to the game, where you now have to avoid the bad ones and catch the good ones.
Right.
And then there's cool power-ups like a fireball, which makes bricks that you hit explode.
That sounds like a holy cow. Get Blast Through on the Microsoft Store.
Really?
Yeah, it's rated teen?
Why?
It's a good question. And it's free, apparently. Blast Through bursts through multicolored blocks in a fast-paced arcade game. Watch for invisible blocks that add to the challenge. Only works with keyboard and mouse. Movement of the bat and paddle is up, down, left, and right. Share your high score, and it's free.
I tell you what, I'm gonna guinea pig on this one and let you know if it's the same thing.
Okay. We'll go with God.
Because, I mean, I have the actual game, so I can, direct you guys where to find that.
Right. But that being said, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot more. I don't think we got a whole lot more to say about Arkanoid. It was inspired by a classic that went on to inspire many more.
Yeah, it's a fun game.
Arkanoid is a worthy spiritual successor to Breakthrough. Not Breakthrough,
Breakout.
Breakout, there you go.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that's Arkanoid, and I can hear some kind of time displacement going on. I think Adam's coming back in his TARDIS from the past to introduce us to the next game. So, take it away, Adam.
Okay, so that's Arkanoid over and done with. We're going to take a little break and move on to Ryan, who's going to talk about his pick.
I am Dr. Mario and I am saving lives. I look different in this game.
I lost my hat, got a code, Dr. Light stethoscope.
I am Dr. Mario and I prescribe high fives. Letter C, best medicine, so you fell down. In the Mushroom Kingdom,
My game was Dr. Mario. It's one of those games. Obviously, I was born after the NES came out, but it was still like one of my first consoles I ever played. Might have been the first console I ever played. And Dr. Mario was one of the first puzzle games I ever played when I really started getting into games. It is very much a Tetris-like. Line up the colors. Well, you line up the blocks, and with this one, I think you get 4 colors in a row. Your whole goal is to knock out the little viruses by matching up your multicolored pills around them, because it turns out Dr. Mario is a bit of a pill pusher. And it's a very basic play. It starts out pretty slow, but it pretty quickly starts to overwhelm you with just buttloads of viruses. But it's not as punishing as, like, say, Columns got. I would say it's a little bit more fair for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it doesn't really ramp up the speed as much like Columns does. It just gives you more viruses to deal with.
Yeah. As you progress through each stage, you'll notice that the pills drop a little bit faster as the longer you take. Or I think it's the fewer viruses you have on screen, the faster your mega vitamins go. But overall, you still have to get pretty deep in there for it to get overwhelming. I don't know, I just really liked it. One thing I liked, and I guess when I was a kid, I don't remember any of this until I got back to playing it, as you progress through the levels, it's like every 5 levels, I think it gives you, not necessarily a cutscene, but you get like a little picture of like the viruses doing something. And supposedly when you finish the game, they get taken away by the mothership, I guess, because they're actually aliens. But I've never actually cleared I think it's level 50. So I've never actually seen it for myself. I've only read about it.
Yeah, I've seen the cutscene because I watched a Let's Play of it, and yeah, they do kind of like get beamed up by aliens.
Because that makes sense. I will say one of my favorite things about Dr. Mario is the music. I've always found what you were talking about, how Columns doesn't really get you pumped up, whereas the Dr. Mario music does.
Yeah, this is what I was referring to earlier. Fever and Chill are just incredible compositions.
Now, after you've been playing for an hour, they can get kind of grating.
Yeah, definitely. I believe Adam will have some stuff to say about that as well.
Probably, yeah. But out the gate, it's pretty nice and it gets you going, even though it doesn't feel that fast. You feel like you're moving, and then the game punishes you for being good. That's how these old games go.
I do definitely wish there was maybe a 3rd and 4th track. I wish it kind of like randomized them as well.
Yeah, as you go through, like, it just pop in a different one every single game. Now, I do believe on one of the later, not necessarily re-releases, but I guess the sequel on Dr. Mario 64, they had a couple more tracks, and I believe you could just set it to random.
I believe so.
So, I don't know, I haven't played Dr. Mario 64 in 15 years, so...
I actually just played it recently because, once again, playing Dr. Mario got me wanting to play Dr. Mario 64 again.
It's a very expensive game now.
Yeah, I'm glad I still have my original cartridge.
Dr. Mario you can pick up for nothing. Dr. Mario 64 is just ungodly expensive.
Yeah.
What did you think, Matt, overall?
One of the things I really enjoyed about Dr. Mario is that it isn't about matching your blocks so much as it is getting rid of the viruses. And you don't really get points or anything from general match 3s that you do or match 4s, but you get the points for actually clearing the viruses off. And it brings in like a bit more of a tactical kind of gameplay, because you don't send all of your pills down to the bottom of the screen. You have to put them all over the screen, wherever the viruses are. So if there's a virus near the top, you need to be really careful about what you put there, because you could very quickly be overwhelmed and kind of like stack the pills right up to the top of the screen and lose. So you have to look at what's coming next and decide where you want to put stuff, and be a lot more careful about your placement as you do in a lot of the other games.
Yeah, that was, I felt after playing a lot more puzzle games after Dr. Mario, like Kirby's Avalanche, and really any of the games because what this game offers that a lot of puzzle games didn't, Tetris does it, but not in the same way, is this offers gravity, and when you break a pill, it becomes a new block.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas in like Tetris, when you break a block, that whole line just drops as is.
Mm.
And what that means is in Dr. Mario, when you hit a sequence and eliminate a string of colors, if virus or not, you can now do setups to kill even more viruses.
Yeah, because I've set up triple and quadruple drops because of that whole mechanic.
And that actually allows, that mechanic actually allows for big setups. And I believe that when you get more chained together, the more viruses you get per single drop, you get a score multiplier on it.
Yeah.
So, if you can get your doubles and triples and wipe out multiple, you'll just rack your score. And that became kind of a standard thing in Tetris-likes later on. I believe it even does it, I believe you get that going on in Columns.
Yeah, you can stack up some pretty decent multipliers with clearing a couple lines at once.
Yeah, you get your mad combos and your setups going. You just rack up that high score like crazy.
I had an NES when I was younger, and Dr. Mario was one of the games that I had. And for about a year, Dr. Mario was never taken out of my system. It was the only game I played. I would play like all the time. Whenever my friend would come over, he'd only want to play Dr. Mario, so we just never took it out of the system. So it got a hell of a lot of play. But we did mute the music and put on our own music, though.
I imagine after a while, you just don't want to hear any more Dr. Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I my first experience with Dr. Mario was the 64 version. So, when I first played it, I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I played it, quite a bit when I was younger. It wasn't until I moved on to other, later systems that it just kind of started collecting dust.
Right. Speaking of sequels, since a lot of these puzzle games did spawn, really they turned into their own franchises in the end. Like Columns got released on every Sega console available. Dr. Mario had multiple sequels. Tetris has been released on every single electronic device to ever exist.
Yeah.
Kind of like Doom.
Interestingly, someone has put Tetris on the LCD readout on a vape pen.
I believe it. Have they gotten to Doom to run on it yet, though?
Maybe. Doom runs on everything. They've gotten Doom to run on calculators.
Yeah, though they've gotten Doom to run on, oscilloscopes? Is that the word I'm looking for? Double check that one. I've seen Doom run on, high-end oscilloscopes, and it looks ridiculous, but it works.
Basically anything with a screen has got Doom on it.
Yeah. But, one of the last sequels that Dr. Mario got for anybody who has a Wii U is Dr. Luigi.
Yeah.
And I haven't played it personally, but from what I have heard and seen, it is it's not just, we just slapped Luigi in a lab coat and called it a game. It actually changes a bit up.
Yeah, it got L-shaped capsules, from what I understand.
So it really it ramped it up quite a bit, but one of these days I'll give it a shot.
Apparently there was a version called Dr. Mario Miracle Cure released in 2015 for the 3DS.
I never heard about that. Was that Japan only?
No, it says Japan, North America, Europe, and Australia. May in Japan and June everywhere else. Looks like Mario and Luigi. 69% on Metacritic. There's a competitive multiplayer mode that was in the online version that you play by holding the 3DS vertically. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Oh.
Hold it in book mode?
Yeah. Basic Dr. Mario, Dr. Luigi. Yeah.
I might have to check that out.
So there are definitely a lot of different ways that you can play it then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Mario, if you just want the Dr. Mario experience, and I'm sure Dr. Mario has also been released on every all of Nintendo's eShops as well, so...
It's on the NES Mini as well.
Yeah, it's on the NES Mini as well, so it's plenty of ways to get your hands on it.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you want a good puzzle game, this for Nintendo, this is definitely one to take a peek at.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, hell, they put Dr. Mario as a minigame in WarioWare and Mario & Luigi Superstar... Oh, no, the viruses appear in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga.
Oh, yeah, it is an established side franchise now. Spin-off. So, this isn't just some little thing. This is the Dr. Mario has its own cult following.
Yeah, there's a knockoff version in Brain Age 2.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is there an amiibo yet?
Yeah, there's Dr. Mario amiibo, but it's from the Smash series, so
it is.
It's not going to have any usability in the Dr. Mario games.
But I'll bet if they release a Dr. Mario game for Switch that we will get a Dr. Mario and Virus amiibo.
I'm sure. I'm probably going to get the Dr. Mario amiibo anyway.
I think I might as well.
I got that, and actually I got the Dr. Mario amiibo instead of a Mario amiibo. So...
Well, I'm probably still going to get that one, because I like the Fireball.
Also, good luck with that one. They're hard to find now.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Damn it, Nintendo.
Not as bad as the Zelda ones, though.
Lord. That could be its own dedicated podcast, just ranting about Nintendo not knowing how to keep up on supply and demand.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a Dr. Mario amiibo for $10 on U.S. Amazon. So that one's not horrible.
Well, I'd get one if I didn't already have one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it. I maxed out on a high score of 87,000 after another shot.
Yeah, I almost had you.
I bet I could do better. I'm not going to say it was the game that was messing me up, but after 25 years of Mario pushing right, the right on all of my NES controllers is starting to go out. I can go left all I want to, but right is getting a little iffy. So that was screwing me up a little bit here and there. But after a couple tries, I was able to top that score where it belongs.
Okay, brilliant. So is there anything else we'd like to say about Dr. Mario before we hand over to our time traveler?
No, I don't think so.
I think we're good.
Okay, so we'll let Adam from the past tell us what he thinks about Dr. Mario, and then we can go into the next pick.
Okay, so for me, Dr. Mario is a game that I had played before when I was younger. I remember little bits of it, but not a lot. And then I think the next time I played it was... I don't know how many years ago, but I think it was on the NES remix that was released for the Wii U. Yeah, I think it was on that. I think it had a Dr. Mario thing on there, so I could play little chunks of it. And then I also replayed it a little bit later because one of my friends bought it for their NES, so again, played a little bit of it on that. Yeah, it's quite an interesting game. I kind of like the mechanic. It separates itself from a lot of these classic puzzle games where instead of matching 3 or matching 4, instead you do match 3 or 4, but that's not the objective. You don't get any points for that. You have to get rid of these viruses. And it gives the game a lot more of a satisfying feeling when you play it, rather than just, relying on luck. I mean, it does kind of make the game a bit harder, I suppose, because you can't just get a feel for it. You can really trap yourself if you're not being right. But, I still find the game pretty good. The main gripe I have about it is that I find that instead of being limited by the difficulty, you're limited by how long it takes for you to be driven insane by the music. I only found out, while I was on a high score binge, that you could actually turn the music off. But at that point, either I had to die or deal with it. And I decided just to die. I could have got a higher score if I tried, but the music was just driving me insane. The music is good. The main theme is awesome. But something, that repeats over and over again, not so much. But, I still had a good time with it. I think it's a neat little game, and for something that's basically just a Mario puzzle game, they did quite well. They didn't just stick any random old puzzle game out there with Mario's face on it. They actually did a good job in creating something that was quite a unique experience, and, I think that's definitely good on Nintendo's part. Okay, that's Dr. Mario done with, so let's move on to Steven's pick and our final game this month.
Alright, so my pick, much to the chagrin of my compatriots, is the massive multiplayer online game Puzzle Pirates. It's a bit of a later game for what we do here. It was released in 2003, but it is by far the puzzle game that I have played the most over the last 10 years. I was introduced to it by my family. We played it together for a long time. Basically what it is you create a pirate, and then anything you want to do, whether you are sailing or getting water out of the ship or fixing the ship or blacksmithing or anything, you do a puzzle. And a lot of the puzzles are based on other things. The sword fighting is Super Puzzle Fighter. The rumble is Puzzle Bobble. The drinking is a puzzle. It's similar to PopCap's Alchemy. And then there's some that they created themselves. But it gives you this nice experience where if you're not good at one puzzle, you can go find a different one and you'll find one you are good at. So for example, when I first started playing, I sucked at all of the puzzles you can do on board the ship. And then they introduced an alternate to sailing called rigging that is my best puzzle. So it's one of those things that with enough time you can see you can get a lot of enjoyment out of, but doesn't work well when you're playing with time constraints like we are.
Yeah, I think with MMOs they do kind of like need quite a major time investment to get the best out of them.
Yeah, because I was when we started this month, I was able to just jump right in and go do stuff because I had 10 years of history with this game.
I think what soured my experience with Puzzle Pirates, well, there was two things. One of them was, because obviously I was starting the game, was just boxes and boxes and boxes of text, so you kind of know what you're doing and where you're going.
Right.
So I spent a good, when I first fired up, I was spending a good 5 to 10 minutes of just cycling through boxes of text.
Yeah.
And that was really irritating, again, because we were on a little bit of time constraint. So that might have been unfair, whereas if I was just firing this up on my own, not really knowing what I was getting into, I might have appreciated that a little bit more instead of just going, I want to play the puzzles.
Yeah.
So I won't necessarily count that against it, as far as how I feel about it here. But what I will count against it, like you said, it has a lot of familiar puzzles in it, lots and lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every puzzle was done a little bit worse than everybody else has done that puzzle game. They're not bad puzzle games, they're just not quite as good as every other shot at them.
Yeah, I played quite a lot of Jewel Quest in the past, and the bilging puzzle in this is kind of like a clone of that, or Jewel Quest might be a clone of something else, I'm not entirely sure, but it just is like a not as good version of Jewel Quest.
Yeah, and that's bilging admittedly is, stripped down Bejeweled with a couple of extra things in there, like the crabs. But sailing is basically Dr. Mario, but with, a little bit of extra stuff in there.
Which I will admit, I did like that puzzle quite a bit.
Yeah. There's a game... the Gunnery game is based on a puzzle called Choo Choo Rocket, apparently, or it's similar to it at least. Hauling Treasure is basically bilging, but with a vertical cursor instead of a horizontal one. There's the Battle Navigation game, which is compared to the board game Robo Rally, which I'm not familiar with. But yeah, so it is a lot of familiar stuff. There are some new puzzles, like the Shipwrightery is an original puzzle. I think Weaving is a original, and Rigging, I think, is original. And if it's not, it's so far removed from its source that it's not even mentioned.
Is Rigging the one with the ropes?
Yes.
I hated that one.
And see, that is the one I am best at, because that's the one I can actually do.
I think bilging is the only one that I really went back to time and time again, because it's the only one that I got any real enjoyment out of. I think the one where you patch up holes in the ship with wood, I found that incredibly simplistic and dull. The one with the ropes, I couldn't even tell what I was doing most of the time.
I thought I was going for crazy combos, and then it was just taking away my gems.
I did quite enjoy the sword fighting one, though. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because the sword fighting is basically Puzzle Fighter.
I didn't get to the puzzle or I didn't get to the sword fighting one. I did rather enjoy the patching one, the ship patching, only because it encouraged you to get really tight combinations. You can overlap if you need to, but that was obviously less points.
Yeah.
Whereas efficiency got you maximum points, and I did I've liked puzzle games like that. There's I've played a few puzzle games that are similar to it. That mechanic, I suppose. The one I was sad that I didn't get to play, and I looked it up. I know that puzzle exists in Puzzle Pirates. was the Puzzle Bobble clone.
Yeah, Rumble.
Or as in the U.S., Puzzle Bobble is Bust-A-Move,
Yeah.
based off of it is an offshoot of Bubble Bobble,
Yeah.
which is a hella hard game after a while, but that's beside the point.
Yeah,
But yeah, I saw-
Rumble is the combat game that I am best at.
Yeah, I saw that one. I'm like, oh, I love that game, and I couldn't find it. I guess I didn't unlock it yet or something.
Basically, there was the mission board. You should have had the option to do a sword fighting mission, a rumble mission, and a drinking mission at some point.
I might not have gotten far enough, but yeah, I saw that, and I was really sad that I couldn't find it because I love Puzzle Bobble.
But like a lot of the other puzzles that we've mentioned, it isn't as good as Puzzle Bobble, that minigame.
Right.
And I assumed it wouldn't be from what I was seeing everywhere else, but still, a little sad that I didn't get to play it. Couldn't find it yet.
One of the real annoyances for me was halfway through the puzzle, you'd get a pop-up text box. It just completely unceremoniously pause the puzzle in the middle of whatever you were doing and just tell you like how you were getting on in terms of points and efficiency and that. Slap bang in the middle of the puzzle, and I've got no idea why I did that.
It's time to take a break.
All right, so the way that works is you get a summary at the end of every league point. So basically, they're saying you've gone 1 league of distance on this trip, and those scores that it shows on those duty reports is how your stats are determined. So, for example, if you get whatever the little icon that shows how you're doing is up to where it's glowing golden and throwing off sparks, you'll get an incredible if you keep it like that for the entire league. So that's why it interrupts you, because it's doing that whole thing where it says, okay, here's how you did for that league.
Okay. It was a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I can see how it would be frustrating, but that is what the reasoning behind it was.
Now, the one redeeming factor of Puzzle Pirates, I would say, and I kind of wish I'd have an opportunity to really do this, is because it is an MMO, it feels like if you were able to get friends together, I don't know if Puzzle Pirates offers a guild system.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could get a group of friends together who were good at certain puzzles, and you could efficiently, essentially run a ship and enter combats and do all these things, I feel like it'd be a little bit more entertaining.
I can tell you with 10 years in it, that is exactly what happens. Like I said, I used to play this with my family. My mom was a master builder. My stepdad was incredible at sailing. And when we played together, I did kind of a little bit of everything because I hadn't found my good game yet. But, we're all sitting there in the same room on laptops playing together. And that definitely does make it more enjoyable, is when you have that group dynamic.
Right. And I can see that because that is the difference, is that this just isn't a puzzle game, it is indeed an MMO.
Right. And it's the only MMO that's ever held my attention.
Yeah, and it's probably because it's so unique. I've never heard of another MMO doing something quite like this. I've seen MMOs where they'll have like silly little mini games and stuff in there, but not one that is literally revolving around classic puzzle games. I do give it props there, and I kind of wish maybe I had the chance to get more into this when it was a newer game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have quite possibly had a much higher opinion of it. But the fact that I've played many of these games, often the original versions, I see that it's just not quite as good as it was just like a little like, if I wanted to play, if I wanted to play Dr. Mario, I'd go play Dr. Mario. If I wanted to go play Bejeweled, I'd rather just go play Bejeweled.
Right.
So and in this day and age, those games are so easy to get a hold of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if it's not like the original game that you're looking to get a hold of, competent clones are everywhere.
Yeah.
But it is definitely an interesting take on the MMO, and
yes,
certainly unique. I mean, most MMOs tend to be fantasy stuff.
Yeah, high fantasy, World of Warcraft clones, RuneScape.
I mean, I've been playing World of Warcraft for a decade, and so I am quite familiar with MMOs. And as Ryan was saying, there are like certain little mini games in that you can do, but not to the extent that that Puzzle Pirates has in terms of variety and scope of the puzzle games.
Yeah, and that's why I enjoy it. I mean, it's more varied, and there's not really a story to worry about. So when people you're playing with are skipping the story and asking you why you aren't caught up yet, that always turned me off on other MMOs.
Yeah, getting in late in the game. So
whereas here, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're here to pilot a ship and maybe occasionally fight and get drunk.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and even for being in for 10 years, I am very not top tier on this. I mean, I have one ship, I have one home. I've never been particularly great at this. It's just I have a lot of fun playing it. So every couple of years, I'll just dip back into it and check it out.
I do like that the pirates look very Playmobil-y.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun when I saw that. I was like, oh, going to make a pirate. I'm like, oh, how cute.
And there are fun things that can happen to your pirate, like if you go on the sea monster hunts and the blockades where you can sink, you can have things like you get a hook, or you get a peg leg, or you get an eye patch.
Nice.
There are certain sea monster hunts called Haunted Seas, where if you sink, you can become a ghost. There's one setup where you can become a skeleton. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that can happen. You just have to have more time to put into it.
Yeah, you have to fully appreciate it. You have to really, as with any MMO, to really appreciate it, you got to sink, a few dozen hours into it.
Yeah.
On originality, I totally give Puzzle Pirates 8 out of 10 Tetrises, but on execution, I have to give it a 3 out of 10 Tetrises.
Yeah, because it's just, it's not great for a jump in, play this, and leave.
Yeah, and that's just all feeds into the whole MMO.
Yeah.
It should still be applauded for doing something different, even if it didn't quite pull it off well, in my opinion.
No, that's fair. I wouldn't mind seeing other MMOs kind of go off the rails and try something wacky.
Yeah, and I mean, and the fact that it's still around for the... it's stuck around for this long. It does have some, hardcore fans. I think one of the things that helped was in 2011 they made it. They put it on Steam, which brought in a whole bunch of new people.
Right.
We should mention that it is free as well on Steam.
Yeah, it is. It is completely free to play. You can get it through Steam or from their website. With Steam, there are achievements for all the trophies that are in game, and they're adding new trophies all the time. I mean, I myself have fucking dozens here.
Again, and unlike other odd MMOs that kind of die off over time, this still seems to have a pretty active player base. So
it's still very active.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Now, that said, it's not what it was 10 years ago.
Oh,
10 years ago, there were 5 or 6 oceans that were all just as filled as the ones now. Basically, what happened is they consolidated a lot of the oceans when they went to Steam because they were seeing dwindling numbers. So
right.
I didn't notice much of a difference because... after the condensing, we still had about the same population per ocean.
Right. It's just that there's fewer servers, or sievers, if you will. But I'm not going to say I liked it, but I appreciate it. I will appreciate Puzzle Pirates.
You can appreciate what they're going for.
Yes.
You just wish they had executed a little better.
I just wish it had been done better.
Right. And that's fair.
Okay, so is that everything we have to say on Puzzle Pirates?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so... one last time, I think I can hear past Adam's TARDIS coming in to give us his opinion on Puzzle Pirates. Take it away, Adam.
Okay, so this is a point where I feel that being separated from everyone else and having to do my things separately is going to affect my opinion on this. My opinion of the game is still the same, but I don't feel I can really rant as much about it. I'm sure that some of these will be mentioned by the other guys as well, but Puzzle Pirates, that game is shit. That game is really shit. It's got a lot of waiting around. and there's a lot of bullshit and fiddly mechanics that aren't really that satisfying. The puzzles themselves don't really do anything unique. I mean, all these puzzles I've kind of seen before. Like, a lot of them are just, puzzle tropes that have been, done again and again. I mean, obviously stuff like Columns was a twist on Tetris, but it did its own thing. Of course, the genre since has been, done many times, so things like Columns, Tetris, even things like Dr. Mario have been things that have, been duplicated, since. But those were quite early puzzle games. This, however, was, a little bit later, and it really should have known better. It takes this sort of free-to-play formula, at least that's what it feels like, and then just bombards it with loads of generic puzzles. They kind of feel just like clones of normal puzzle games, but not as good. And there's no music or anything, so I find that when you're doing music, when you're doing the puzzle, because of no music, it doesn't feel satisfying. You just get bored really, really easily. I didn't have a good time with this at all. I tried a variety of different puzzles and didn't really like any of them. I mean, none of them were particularly bad because they're just copies of existing puzzle games, but they didn't really do it well, and what it loses makes it kind of boring. Stephen tells me that it's quite popular, and, there are people playing it at the moment, even though, it's an old game. And I have no idea why. It's shite. It's really bad. I mean, it's not terrible, I suppose. I mean, the main thing it does wrong is it's just so boring. So boring and generic. I mean, sorry, Stephen, for, wailing on it so much, but I really didn't have a good time with Puzzle Pirates. Anyway, I'll stop ranting now so we can, wrap things up. Okay, so that was all 4 of our games that we covered this time. We had Arkanoid, Dr. Mario, Columns, and fucking Puzzle Pirates. Now it's time to see which game people liked best. Right, I'll kick things off. For me, from the other guys, I would have to say it's Columns. It's a game that I have a lot of experience with and I have a lot of fun with. Even though I'm not very good at it, and I probably should be considering how many times I've actually played this fucking game, I'm no good at it, but I love it. So that's my pick. So let's move on to the other guys and see what they pick.
My favourite game this month was Dr. Mario. If it hadn't already been picked by Ryan, I would have picked it myself for this slot. As I mentioned, I played it a hell of a lot when I was a kid, and I just really, really enjoyed the gameplay, really enjoyed the feel of it, really enjoyed the music in short bursts, and it just really, really does it for me. Stephen, what was your favourite?
I'm going to say basically the same thing. If he hadn't picked Dr. Mario, I probably would have picked Dr. Mario 64. Just so I wouldn't have to subject you guys to an MMO. But, I mean, I love Dr. Mario. I mean, it was just as much of a blast as I expected it to be. So, yeah, Dr. Mario is definitely my pick for the month.
Okay, and Ryan?
I would pick Dr. Mario if it wasn't my pick, so that being said, my favorite was Arkanoid. It really brought me back to playing lots of Breakout and Breakout clones, which are always up there in my classic puzzly action puzzle category. Had I known that you were all into Dr. Mario, I probably would have picked Bust-A-Move, but that's neither here nor there now. But easily Arkanoid, even though I probably had the worst score of us all. I'm going to go back and play some more of that.
Okay, brilliant. So we'll hand off to Past Adam again for the outro.
Well, there we go. This has been a little bit of a shorter podcast than usual, given the topic and given the technical problems, but hopefully it was still entertaining enough for people to listen to. Next time, we're going to move on to a bit more of an in-depth genre, so that, I imagine, will be a lot more interesting and a lot more in-depth than this one. So, stay tuned soon for the next episode of Retro Odyssey. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Till next time.
Bye.